Had to do something to cover up my hair today because I look a little bit crazy. But I'm here. I'm late. I'm still here. And I'm still very excited for this conversation that's about to happen tonight. So, if you don't already know me, my name is Tayla, birth sister Tayla X, all of the above. I go by all of those names. And I am a doula. And I'm also a student midwife going through the processes right now. That's the processes. And I'm a mom who has a very crazy lifestyle. Like I was actually low key, I was going through my monthly budget earlier, and this might sound super boring. But for me, like if I show y'all, I was literally at work just going through a whole bunch of different numbers. And that is like my happy place. Like I could do that a lot. And yeah, I was actually going to make a topic on that, like how moms can budget their lifestyles, their household, all of that stuff, because I be doing that. And it's interesting to me because math has always been my favorite subject. So anyway, besides that, I have a great show for y'all tonight. I'm about to edit my little banner thing because, like I said, I'm late. I literally just made everything right now. The thumbnail, the StreamYard, the text message, everything. So hopefully some people come and I'm not too late. What you doing? No, ma'am, you need to wait. I'll be gearing my children up for like 30 minutes before I'm about to go live. All right, y'all, I'm about to do this video. Y'all gotta be quiet. All right, y'all, I'm about to. They don't care. They're gonna wait until I start, and then they're gonna run in here and be like, "I got a question." So anyway, tonight's topic is how to. No, I'm not even gonna put all that. Hospital birth 101. This topic is gonna be interesting because I hate hospitals. So I'm gonna try my best not to be the most biased person in the room, but I'm biased as hell. So I got a couple of disclaimers. But before we even get into that, I'm about to tell y'all about my week. So yesterday I did a live with Dr. Akili. It was about prenatal care. So pregnancy care, prenatal care. Oh dang, I done put the wrong thing. I'm tired, y'all. Another thing besides the live with Dr. Akili is that my daughter been a little congested for the last couple of days. She ain't get no good sleep last night, which means the person she was sleeping next to did not sleep well either. So it's fine, but I just yeah, I'm a little bit behind. And then also, like y'all heard me talking about before, like I'm kind of in that week where it's like I just want to be chill. I ignored a lot of phone calls today. I feel kind of bad, but catch me next week. I'm gonna be very, very talkative, probably. So yeah, so I did a live with Dr. Akili yesterday that was really good. It was about pregnancy care, prenatal care. We talked about prenatal testing. We even talked about preparing for birth after cesareans. So that was one of the things that came up. And I be just learning so much from Dr. Akili, like all the time. And one of the things that's like my favorite thing about him is that he's gonna go back. He's not gonna be like one of those doctors that's like, well, I know it all, so just ask me. He'll be like, let's go back to the Quran. What does the Quran say? Let's go back to the Bible. What does that say? Let's go back to How to Eat to Live. What does that say? And I just love that because he will definitely keep you grounded and focused on not putting those degrees on a pedestal, which is what we probably are about to be talking about tonight. So I sent out a text earlier. Not a lot of y'all text me back, but I was asking for like topics for tonight, right? And one of my friends said something about, I can't even remember word for it, but she said something about like being mentally prepared for birth, I think is what the case was, which is 100% of what my class is about. So if you're interested, you could just go to birthsistertaylor.com and join the class. But I do be talking about that a lot. So that's where I kind of started thinking about the topic for tonight. I'm like, okay, so mentally preparing, like I could give y'all little, like the little rituals and stuff that I have my moms do. But then I feel like I've done that before, or did I? Wait, okay, no, yeah, I've done that before when it comes to home births. And then I do that every single week in my class. And I don't really talk about hospital births like that. But I feel like majority of women are giving birth in hospitals. So like, am I neglecting them? That's what I started thinking. So yeah, other than that, my week has been pretty smooth. I feel bad though. Like I said, we missed soccer practice, we missed karate. I don't want to take my baby around other people's children's because I know people be like, oh my God, she's gonna start a new pandemic. Like people be tripping over sickness, and I just be so like, I don't care. I don't care. But anyway, that's just me. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna keep her in the house. And hopefully get rid of it. And another thing that happened to me this week is I realized something about myself. So y'all know I work from home, and I be having a lot of like tendencies to, and it could also just be like the week that I'm in right now, but I be having a lot of tendencies to respond to people's dumb stuff. I realized that about myself this week. But anyway, that's off topic. That's my week. It's been very uneventful. I ain't got nothing for y'all. My children got their first game coming up this Saturday, and I'm about to be all over the place because they're on two different teams. They're in two different grades, and their games are going to be in two different locations on the same day. So hopefully their daddy come through for me and help your girl out, because I cannot clone myself as bad as I want to. And another side note I thought was kind of funny, when I put this on, my son told me I look like somebody off Grand Theft Auto. So hopefully I don't look too much like a boy today. Anyway, but my hair was a mess, so I had to cover it up. But I'm like, this boy, he was like, why do you look like somebody off San Andreas? I think he said, or something. I'm like, boy, leave me alone. But anyway, on to the topic tonight. I really hope that the people that are watching have some questions for me, because y'all know I love to answer questions. So I'm going to be watching the chat just in case. But if not, we're going to go through some of this information, get through all my little rants and stuff, and then let's just go from there. Okay? So the first thing I wanted to go over when it comes to preparing for hospital birth is, I guess it just goes back to education, like being as educated as possible. And I really be like stressing that. And I feel like that's what me and Dr. Akili been talking about for the last, I don't know how many podcasts we did now, but being as educated as possible, because then you build a much better understanding of things. So like the first thing that I want you to be educated on is the history of hospital births. We have not been giving birth in hospitals forever, because look, I forgot to even say this as a disclaimer. I don't recommend hospital births. Just because I'm doing this video does not mean that I recommend hospital births. I have to get that disclaimer out there. I don't recommend it. I've had two myself, so I can bear witness and tell you that I don't recommend hospital births. So, but let's continue to speak to the people that are still going into the hospitals, right? So the first thing to be mindful of is that we have not been birthing in hospitals for long. So I think it was the 50s or the 60s. And I'm talking 1950s, 1960s, not 1800s, not the 1700s, no, 1950s. Whenever we got our voting rights, I think it was the 50s or the 60s. Whenever we got those, that's when we became good enough to give birth in their hospitals. We weren't allowed to give birth in hospitals at one point. So that fact alone kind of blows my mind, because now it's like we're fighting to keep rights that like actually hurt us. They actually been hurting us for a very long time now. Like the cesarean rate is sky high. Black women, oh my God, the Black maternal mortality rate is crazy. And that's not happening outside of the hospitals. Those are rates from the hospitals. Y'all do understand that part, right? Like anytime we talk about Black maternal mortality, that's not coming from home birth statistics. That's coming from hospitals. They are the problem. So it's crazy to me that we really, really fought for that right and that privilege, or whatever the hell our grandparents wanted to call it to give birth in the hospitals. And then come to turn out, like, again, knowing your history, we became their test dummies. They started coming out with so many different things around this time too, like the forceps, the vacuums, ultrasounds. That's one that I wanted to bring up. Like the technology is even new. The Doppler ain't that old. Ultrasounds ain't that old. All of these things are like literally like, let's just try this out on women. And most of them are actually created by men who ain't never had a uterus, who ain't never been in labor, ever. Don't you slide back there. But yeah, that is the part that we need to be mindful of, because then we go in with different type of expectations for them. Like, we shouldn't be having that type of expectation. And this is why I be like talking to Dr. Akiwi so much, because when we start taking our health back into our own hands, we don't have to be in a panic mode to get to a provider and be in a panic mode to get to a hospital. So all of those things is like really important to take care of beforehand. But a lot of us are waiting till we're pregnant, and then we're like, okay, cool, let me figure this out as I go, as far as picking a provider and where I'm going to give birth and all of those things. So the hospital, giving birth in the hospital is brand new. Not even as old as your great grandma, literally, depending on how old you are. So my grandma was the first generation to be born in the hospital. My great grandma and some of her children, the older children, weren't allowed. She was not allowed to give birth in the hospital. That's how old it is. It's not that old. My grandfather was not born in the hospital. He's still living and walking and talking. He was not born in a hospital. So that gives some perspective. And they thought that like, oh, that like we're making changes and stuff, right? I don't think I put this on right. It's not tight enough for something. But they thought that we were like making changes in the right direction. But lo and behold, did they know we've been experimented on since before we was even free. As slaves, women were experimented on. So that's something you just, but that's something you just want to be mindful of. Like, who said that ever stopped? Who said that ever stopped? They've been coming out with new toys and new gadgets. Like, it literally was one point where this is when we first started giving birth in the hospitals, and they would literally drug women, like put them to sleep, strap them down like in the shape of a 4. And they would like literally be experimenting with stuff. No, that will spin you around. This sound crazy, but I swear to God, it's in the textbook. It's in my midwifery textbook. They would strap them down in the shape of a star. So legs spread, arms spread. And they had this thing that would spin you around to basically get the baby to, like, I don't know what they was thinking, but this is what they was thinking. They wanted to test things out. Like, it's like, oh, somebody gonna let me experiment on them. Why not? And it's crazy too, because I remember when I was a child, bro, I used to experiment with crazy stuff in the kitchen, be trying to get my mama to try some stuff. No, that's what they was doing. That's what the history of gynecology is, experiments. So the other thing that I wanted to mention, the ultrasound is new, Dopplers are new, all of these things are new. And then you got to put into perspective, when did we start giving birth? Does anybody have a birth record of when the first Black woman gave birth on Earth? No, and it's a lot older than the 1900s. It's a lot older than that. So being dependent on them mentally is messing us up, because we go in there to have our babies delivered when it's the mom's job to birth the baby. That's one of the first things your doula should be giving back to you. As a doula, they should be giving that back to you. Sis, I'm here to support you and help you along the way, but it's your job to birth your baby. I can't do that for you. Now, if I was a gynecologist somewhere, then yeah, maybe I would have that in my mind that I could do that for you. But as your doula, as your midwife, nobody can do that for you. Not your mama, not your husband. Nobody can do that for you. So being dependent on them mentally is a problem. So most of this I feel like is about being mentally prepared, but obviously, you know, at the end I'm gonna talk about some tangible solutions and what to do about the mess. But most of it is mental. Birth itself, it's mostly mental. So when you're mentally dependent on somebody else to deliver your baby versus you being ready, mentally ready to birth my baby, you walk into the hospitals with a whole different agenda and a whole different things, expectations that you're waiting on, that you're looking for. So that's one thing I don't like. What else did I write down? Basically went over those first two in that little rant. But what to expect? Okay, so I'm gonna paint the picture for y'all as far as what to expect when we go into hospitals, right? So the first thing is, depending on what time it is, but more than likely you're gonna go in through the emergency room. Think about this mentally. Your birth is not an emergency. Your birth is not a crisis that needs to go through the emergency entrance. That's where gunshot victims come in. That's where people that just had a heart attack, a stroke, need to be revived. That's where they're coming in. So now I'm getting you mentally prepared, because this what you about to walk through. So-and-so coding over here. They need to get the damn, you know, from Grey's Anatomy when they be like, clear. Like, that's literally happened right next to you as you're in labor. So mentally, what do these hospitals do to us, right? So you're going to walk into the emergency room. They're going to ask you why you here, like they dumb. I swear they're going to ask you, like, what can we do for you? Why are you here? And whatever way they ask, they're going to ask that like they're dumb. Like they don't see that I'm in pain and I got this big belly in front of me. They're going to ask that. Then you're going to tell them, they're going to be like, okay, can we have your insurance and your ID? Like, I thought this was an emergency room. You're not in a rush to like get me to my doctor. No, they're not. They're not, because they know giving birth is not an emergency. Now, if you did come in like, man, I've been shot, I need a gurney, like they would have literally had a whole different thing behind that. They would have had a whole different response behind that. But you going in saying, I'm in labor. Okay, yeah, give me your ID and your insurance. That's it. Then they might have some intake forms for you to fill out, your history, a whole bunch of stuff they should have got before. And I always tell moms doing hospital births, get that information before. Like, get all those prerequisite sheets or intake forms, whatever. Get that before at one of your prenatal appointments. So that way, when you come into the hospital, you got it nicely in a nice little envelope for them. Here you go. Here's all your, I mean, not cuss. I'm trying so hard to stop cussing. Here's all your forms. Here's a copy of my ID, insurance, blah, blah, blah. Here you go. You already got it in your hospital bag, right? Because we already talked about this before, about how all of these questions and interventions, interruptions stall your labor. So you're prepared to not let them stall your labor as much as you possibly can in a hospital, though. Okay. So that's what you're gonna do. Then they're gonna be like, okay, they're gonna bring you a wheelchair. Mentally, who belongs in wheelchairs? Just think about what it's doing to us mentally. Who belongs in wheelchairs? Why do you want me to sit still? Why do you want me to be strapped to a bed? Like, why can't I move? Why should I be stiff at a time like this where I need my pelvic bones to shift and move? During labor is literally the only time in life that your pelvic bones will move. We're the only ones with that ability, women. Not birthing people, not I don't know what they are. I guess that's the only thing. The only other title, men with uterus transplants or something. I don't know. We're the only one, unless they get a pelvic bone transplant as well. We're literally the only ones that are born with pelvic bones that are able to move. Your pelvic bones will not move no other time of your life unless you have like a weak pelvic floor due to other stuff. But on a normal person, it's not gonna move unless you are pregnant and in labor. So why do I need a wheelchair? I remember when I was in the hospital with Jaylani, I actually showed up to the hospital because my water had been broken for a couple of days and I didn't actually start my labor. Like my contractions never started. So they offered me a wheelchair and I'm like, you see, I'm perfectly fine. Like I don't even have contractions. Why would I sit in a wheelchair when I'm pregnant with my son and my contractions and water broke at the same time? I remember accepting that wheelchair. But think about how they're preparing you to depend on us. You're going to sit down. We're going to move you from the chair to the bed. That's all dependence. Like, bro, I can do this by myself. I don't want moms getting stiff because movement during labor is so important. I don't want y'all getting stiff. And then it's like to the point where I'm so stiff and I can't move and I'm so unprepared. Let me just get the epidural. That's what it always ends up going to when moms are not prepared for this. So yeah, I remember turning it down and they was like literally arguing with me. My baby daddy was so mad because I'm so argumentative in these type of situations. He was just like, why don't you just sit? No, you sit. Literally. I was like, I'll push the wheelchair. Don't worry about it. I'll push it. Because they basically was like refusing to keep the wheelchair. They was like, no, hospital policy, blah, blah, blah. I pushed my own wheelchair because I'm not in labor and I don't want to be in a position where you think I'm handicapped. So after they push you up to the triage, because they're not going to admit you unless you let them do a check. That's the other BS. For me, I didn't get no check. I had midwives that already knew that ain't it. I don't want that. And also my midwives also knew that my water was already broken and checking me you could possibly push some type of bacteria back there and cause infection. And those situations, they have you on a timer. Your water's been broken. We've been checking you. We got to get the baby out. Because most likely they're sitting around in some infected fluids. So there you go, cesarean. But my midwives knew that I was trying to avoid that. And they also knew that my water was broken. So I never got checked. But usually this is the part where they take you up to the triage, which is not technically admitting you yet. And they're going to check to see how far along you are. Now, depending on how far along you are, it depends on if they're going to actually admit you or not. Now, some hospitals might still be going based off of the old 4 centimeters, but right now it's actually 6 centimeters. It's supposed to be 6 centimeters is active labor. If you are not at 6 centimeters, they're not going to admit you. They might try to keep you, but they're not going to actually admit you and put you in a room and get you comfortable and stuff. They're just going to constantly send people in and out to check your blood pressure, put you on the non-stress bells, draw your blood, all of these things. But they're not going to admit you until you're 6 centimeters. So that's another thing to think about too. Like, you should not be rushing to get to these hospitals. You have plenty of time. It's very, very rare. Like, okay, maybe you done had 7 babies and your last baby came out in 30 minutes. I probably should go to the hospital right away. But especially first-time moms, you do not want to rush to get to the hospital. There's no reason to rush there. If anything, that should be your last stop. Last minute stop. Like, you want to go when it's to the point where it's like, I can't do nothing else. And you might actually need the wheelchair at this point, but not early labor, not even the beginning parts of active labor. Because if 6 centimeters is where you at and you get to the hospital and you got to talk to the person to check in, you got to talk to the security guard, you got to do all this back and forth. Now you're stalling your labor and you're stopping things, and you're constantly being moved around. So it's really hard for moms to actually continue their labor and progress when they're constantly being moved around. Like, we want to feel safe and secure to have our babies. If we don't know if we're going to be in this room or we're going to be in this room, like, is so-and-so coming, blah, blah, blah. Like, it's all these questions in our head. We might not be asking them out loud, but we have all these questions and we don't know exactly where our labor is going. So we like basically just stalling our own labor. So you want to go there the very last minute. So, okay, then you're 6 centimeters. Congrats. They're going to move you over to another room and do the whole process over again of distracting you from your labor. A nurse is going to come in and introduce herself. Hi, I'll be taking care of you guys. And, oh, nice to meet you. The dad, blah, blah, blah. She's going to write her name on the board. Oh, just let me know if you need anything, blah, blah, blah. Get you strapped up to your belts. That's the other thing to think about. Unless you've already had these conversations prenatally, they're going to get you strapped up to 2 belts. One is to test. I don't want to say measure. One is to measure. What's the word I'm looking for? One is to pick up. I'll say pick up as well as a machine can, your contractions. And then the other is to monitor baby's heartbeat. So it's supposed to basically do the job of a midwife, because your OBGYN, okay, it might be a midwife too in the hospital. I shouldn't assume. It might be a midwife in the hospital. But if a midwife in the hospital, they still have more patients than just you that are in labor right now. OBGYN probably has more patients than that midwife, but they still have more than one person to check on. So those straps basically do the job of a midwife, because a midwife is doing her thing throughout the hospital, whatever the hell they're doing, besides being at your birth. And then they're going to put the blood pressure monitor on you. That's already set to go off every 15 minutes, regardless if you're having a contraction or not. That blood pressure monitor is going to go off. What else? Oh, the IV for fluids. Also, just in case you need Pitocin, or just in case you need whatever the hell reason they give you, they put an IV needle in your hand. And then you have the pulse thing on your finger. Like, picture this. Let me see if I can find a great picture. As a matter of fact, I think I have before. Hospital births in labor. I'm just going to Google something real quick and see if I can find a nice little picture of how comfortable this really looks. All of these people are just so happy. Oh my God. Let me show y'all what I'm looking at too. I shares. This is not what I'm looking for, but I'm just laughing because it's like, oh my God, they just look so happy. This is fake. Fake. All right. Let's try non-stress test after that. Okay, here we go. She's doing a non-stress test. She's not in labor. She's like, this is when maybe you went over 40 weeks and they just want to monitor the baby. They might have you do a non-stress test for, I don't know, an hour, maybe 3 hours. That's this picture. Because she's sitting in a chair. She's not in a bed. This one might be goodie. Oh, this is the one I was actually looking for. This one right here. Let's look at this photo. Can I make it bigger? Okay, so, and this don't even show it all because she doesn't have an IV in her hand. I don't see that. But I do see the blood pressure monitor, the 2 straps around her belly, just like that. They need to be form and fitting in order for them to pick up contractions as well as they possibly can. Like, they don't do that well of a job. And that's really the main issue with those belts as well. They lead to a lot of cesarean sections. And this will be a really good article to read too. Evidence-based on fetal monitoring. Because continuous fetal monitoring versus intermediate fetal monitoring is a big difference. It's a big difference. I just want to see if they're going to throw out a year here. Oh my God. Okay. So this says in 1822, it became accepted, but with a stethoscope. This says In 1958 is when it became really a thing. So continuously through labor is the belts. The stethoscope is what your midwife does intermediately after contractions, maybe during a couple, but mostly after contractions. Let's say 19 what? Hold on. 19 what? 58. Where did it go? Dang, I lost it. Dang. Continuous electronical fetal heart rate monitoring was introduced into hospitals in the 1970s without evidence, but a strong marketing push. 1970s, come on, y'all. This is some brand new shit. I'm gonna just put this in the chat for later use. But anyway, that's basically the picture that I wanted to show, is that this is some brand new stuff. And also it look uncomfortable. It's going to be uncomfortable. Don't expect to go into the hospital and be comfortable. I don't care where you're giving birth. Don't expect to go into the hospital and be comfortable. That's really the main thing about what to expect. Okay, I've tried to paint a picture. Don't expect to be comfortable. It's not your home. It's not your family members. Like, don't expect to be comfortable. Okay, and then the last thing I'm going to talk about, because I'm on the last thing already. So, solutions in order to navigate. I didn't even really write none down, but I guess I'm just going to think about what we kind of just talked about and some solutions to go based off that, right? So one I already said, to have your paperwork already filled out before, like the intake forms and stuff. Ask them for that during your prenatal appointments. Have it ready. The second solution I would say is to have all communication and conversation go through your partner. We talked about this in one of the earlier podcasts. Your partner already knows your birth plan. They don't need to talk to mom. They don't need to talk to mom. That's dad's baby too. If it's about the baby, talk to dad. He already know what I want. Cool. Talk to him because he's not going through labor. I am. So that's the second solution. The third solution, I would say, I was thinking something funny in my head, but I'm not going to say that out loud. The third solution that I would say is to really interview these providers. If you feel like you're going to be giving birth in a hospital, you don't have a choice. I don't like to take away people's choices, so I had to put these up there. If you feel like you don't have a choice, you're going to give birth in a hospital, you need to be interviewing providers about things like fetal monitoring. How often are you going to do it? Do I have to wear those straps around my belly? Am I free to move around the hospital? I want to be able to walk around. And then also I said another thing, go at the last minute. We shouldn't be there all day in labor. We should not be there all day in labor. It's not a comfy place to be in during labor. And all of the noise and racket in the background is literally stalling your labor. Hearing people on the intercom being called, doctors being called to surgery, the beeping of the machines. All of these things are not designed for a woman in labor. They're designed for emergencies. So once you get out of the mental space that your birth is an emergency, because it's not, then now it's like, okay, how can I make myself the most comfortable here? So any equipment that doesn't need to be in there, these are conversations we should have before. If you are okay with me not having those straps around my belly and, coming in every hour or so to do my blood pressure and check baby's heart rate, I don't even need these machines in here. So can we take all the unnecessary equipment out of my room so I don't even have to hear the beeping and none of that? Some of them, they have the things where you could turn down the sound, but oh my God, when those blood pressure monitors like come off, you went to the bathroom, they are going to keep beeping because they're alerting a nurse to to come in and fix this. So if we can get that equipment out of my room, that'd be great. I don't know, honestly, like as far as solutions go, the one thing that I was thinking that was kind of funny that I said I wasn't going to say, I'm going to say it now. To not give birth in a hospital. Avoid it by any means necessary. And then if you absolutely have to, man, you got to be prepared. You got to be prepared to literally Like, you know how they say the sperm was going against gravity to meet the egg? You got to be that prepared because you're literally going against what's natural and normal to have your baby. To do something natural and normal, you're going to go against what's natural and normal. So you got to really be prepared for that. So, anywho, that's it. I only had my little 2 viewers today and it was quiet. So I'm about to go. Like I said, I didn't get that much sleep last night, so I'm about to sleep. Tomorrow I'm off. I have a couple of errands to run. I'm excited for some errands to run, getting out the house, and I don't have class again tomorrow. I'm going to be back Saturday. I do have a birth class coming up this Friday. If you are interested, come through. You can find the information at birthsistertayla.com. And I kind of just want to show this off real quick. Hold on. Because I feel like I did such a good job with this page. It looks good on mobile too, but I feel like I did such a good job with this page. This is my new page that I was kind of talking about before, where it has all of the things that I'm like currently doing right now, like my postpartum planning guide, my masterclass. I have a free masterclass every Friday. Come through. Then I have something that just shows my package for my local doula support, just because I feel like moms might want to see it before they book a consultation, which is the next option. And yeah, so the podcast community should come right back to me. I went through 2 labors. I don't want to hear myself talk, but yeah, I'm proud of that. So yeah, if you're interested in coming to a class or even getting a consultation, if you need a postpartum planning guide, it's all free 99. You know, this is my free resources, basically. birthsistertayla.com. It's right there and available for you. So anywho, besides that, if you want to get notified about a podcast coming up, I go live every Wednesday and Saturday at 8 p.m. Central Standard Time. And you could text me at the number of 312-847-3722. Just text womb to that number, and then I'll send you a link every time I go live. So, all right, peace, y'all.